Welcome to No Longer Conformed. I'm Erik Garthe, and we are studying It's Never Too Late, Bible bits from Genesis. In this session, we'll be looking at Genesis 21, verses 14 to 21, modern day motherhood. The 21st century brings a very different life, but God's plan hasn't changed. One man for one woman for life. Divorce should not be an option for two joined as one. It's not safe sex, but no sex until marriage. The husband is primary provider, the wife as primary nurturer. And yet we live in a world very different than that. The plight of the modern mother is that dreams are often dashed and hope is smashed. The truth is 60% or 60+% of mothers work outside the home, and 80+% of mothers have school-age children. The church must hold up high and holy standards for the home. It must minister to avoid divorces, yet be ready to help bind up the lives and hearts that get battered and broken. The reality is, homes outside the church often have no father present, and the same is often true of many Christian homes. Christian moms are trying to be both mom and dad in one, with multiple jobs, sports activities, carpools, cleaning the house, mowing the lawn, keeping the children in church. There are many mothers in the Bible to cite for Mother's Day messages. There's the Proverbs 31 mother, Naomi, Hannah, the Shunammite women, Ruth, and Mary, Jesus' mother, to name a few. I'd like us to look at a modern mother in the Bible. She was a single mom, but every mother can relate to her world and her experience of motherhood. This woman illustrates the plight of modern mothers, the fight of modern mothers, and the might of modern mothers. And I'm referring to Hagar, Ishmael's mom. Hagar was a single mom. She was a young mom, pregnant before she was ready, and no father in the home. She was abandoned, lost her job, had no friends, and her family lived far away. Hagar's life can speak across the centuries to many modern mothers. Here's some background that Abraham didn't have a child, but he had a promise that he would have a son one day, and that Abraham, who was barren, and Sarah, who was barren, and Abraham, who was old and getting older, would have a son, and that son would be a special son. The Messiah would come through him. The nations would be blessed. He would be called great. But that hadn't happened. And so they're at this place where God had given this promise, and years were passing by with no fulfillment of the promise. So let's look in to that situation, kind of look inside that giant tent of Abraham's family, and see that Sarah suggested to Abraham that he have a child by her servant woman. And because that child would be born in the family, it would be recognized as a child of Abraham. Maybe that's the way God planned to fulfill the promise. And so Abraham went ahead with the plan, slept with Hagar, made her pregnant, and she had the child, Ishmael. But as time went on, as the child grew, Sarah became jealous of Hagar and began to despise her because she had the child. Abraham was being fathered to Ishmael, and she didn't have a child. Didn't seem to be working out the way that she thought. It wasn't viewed as her child. It was Ishmael's child, and Abraham was the father. So she had one of those discussions with Abraham and said, you got to do something here. You need to get rid of this woman and her child. And then I guess we need to go back and wait for God to fulfill the promise. And that's where our text picks up. The first thing we want to see as we look at Hagar's life and see how it speaks across the centuries to modern mothers. The first thing we can see is the plight of many modern mothers. Look at verses 14 to 16 of Genesis 21. So Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water, and putting it on her shoulder, he gave it and the boy to Hagar and sent her away. And then she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba, and the water in the skin was used up. And she placed the boy under one of the shrubs. Then she went and sat down across from him at a distance of about a bow shot. For she said to herself, let me not see the death of the boy. So she sat opposite him and lifted her voice and wept. Hagar was the victim. Abraham was impatient. He agreed with Sarah. He should have continued to wait on God's promise. Hagar knew how it felt to be rejected. And so did Ishmael. He loved his dad, but his dad sent him away. Hagar was now on her own, a new experience for her. She had no one to help with decisions, to fix the car, to repair the faucet. She didn't know where she was going or what she was going to do. Her purpose in life was lost. This is so many modern mothers. She's hungry and thirsty. The water in the skin was used up, it said. Her resources ran dry. It was bad enough that she was hurting without protection. Now she was hungry without provision. She felt hopeless. It says she went and sat down and lifted her voice and wept. She didn't want her son to see her. Have you ever gone into the privacy of a bedroom, shut the door, sat down, and just cried? God allowed Hagar and her son to come to the point where they could no longer endure in their own strength. Yet, even with this plight, mothers should not give up. And why? Well, see what happens next. With Hagar, we see the plight of many modern mothers. But second, we can also see the fight of many modern mothers. Look at verses 17 and 18. And God heard the voice of the lad. And then the angel of God called to Hagar out of heaven and said to her, what ails you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has heard the voice of the lad where he is. Arise, lift up the lad and hold him with your hand, for I will make him a great nation. As Hagar sat there, the angel of the Lord came and gave some comforting words, a thread to hold on to, a crack in the door, a light at the end of the tunnel. Oh, and who was that angel? Oh, he was the pre-incarnate appearance of Jesus Christ. In the Old Testament, when it talks about the angel of the Lord, it's referring to Jesus. It's referring to his appearance before he was incarnate. What we call a Christophany, an appearance of Christ. He was the same one with the 3 young men in the furnace, the one who promises to be with us in the water and in the fires of life. Fear not, God has heard your prayers. Did you notice God heard Ishmael's prayer? Did you also notice Hagar's encouragement? Arise, lift up the lad and hold him with your hand, for I will make him a great nation. One of the most important things a parent can do for their children is to lift them up. Let them know that God has a good plan for their life. Tell them you're proud to be their mom, their dad. Teach your children by example and word to believe and trust in the Lord. Hagar fought for her boy. She built up Ishmael's self-esteem. She built up his self-worth. She walked with him, showed him the way, led by example. Listen, behind the most productive lives are mothers who took them by the hand. The fight is on for many modern mothers. Expectations, encouragements, example. With Hagar, we see the plight and the fight of many modern mothers. And third, we can see the might of many modern mothers. Verses 19 to 21. And then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she went and filled the skin with water and gave the lad a drink. And so God was with the lad, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness and became an archer. He dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. Hagar's strength was from the Lord. Abraham gave her a skin of water, but God gave her a well. He became her provider. Wait a minute. That well was there all along. Yes, but Hagar did not see it until God pointed it out. How often is hope almost gone and God reveals a well? It's not enough that the well was nearby. God had to open her eyes. There is a well of everlasting water nearby for everyone in Jesus Christ. Pray that God would open the eyes of the lost, hopeless, and in need of the forgiveness and eternal life God offers. There are many moms who could testify that they never would have made it without some supernatural help at some point, many at several points. God opened Hagar's eyes to see the well, but she had to draw the water, drink the water, and give the water to her boy. And look at God's involvement in verses 20 and 21. So God was with the lad, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness and became an archer. He dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. It's interesting that God uses adversity to build character. Hagar's plight is common to many modern mothers, but Hagar had help raising her boy. Supernatural help by God himself with a promise to give her help. God promises to be there in raising our children if we turn and trust him. Hagar nurtured Ishmael and walked with him until he married. They overcame every obstacle in the way with the Lord. And notice the message of Genesis 25 and verse 9. and his sons, Isaac and Ishmael, buried him in the cave of Machpelah, which is before Mamre, in the field of Ephron, the son of Zohar the Hittite. Ishmael learned to love, respect, and he learned forgiveness. Hagar would have taught him these. It's our responsibility to build the family. God's word, even from many thousand years ago, speaks to the modern mother. You take that, you think about all that, and you have a great day.